Good evening, everybody. It is Wednesday, January 18th, 2023. This is now the Legislative Action and Community Engagement Committee meeting. Welcome to the first committee meeting of 2023. Let's start off with talking about our referendum, the referendum communication.
Sure. So we currently have our website up and running. It is added to at every opportunity. I won't say daily because perhaps daily is not necessary. So we have on there the calculator for the cost to the taxpayer. We have various different plans for the three buildings. We have some language which explains how it affects other programs from around the district. Additionally, a letter went out today to every one of the HOA, the homeowners associations, representatives of the information that we received. So a letter basically just saying that we're very excited that there will be a referendum on March the 14th. We welcome an opportunity to come to your community and or provide you with information. We are in the process of completing pamphlets, as well as I had a phone conversation with Ms. Oxbach, who is our MTA president. She had a meeting today, so she hasn't gotten back to me yet. It may have been this evening, actually. Wasn't sure if it was during the day or in the evening, with the representative, the organizational representative of the NJEA regarding what and how they can support the referendum. What else have we done? We have two scheduled dates, which we're going to get out into the public, and I think we just may have put it back on the website. So we have March 2nd and March 9th. March 2nd, I believe, is at Mill Lake. You can correct me, Dr. Lillian, if you want to take a quick gander. One is going to be at Mill Lake, and the other one is going to be at Applegoth. We chose those two places because they are two totally different sides of town. And we thought it'd be nice to be able to utilize our own schools. So at that time, there'll be a presentation on the referendum with any details and information, and similar to what we did at the town hall. But it's definitely a presentation. It's not going to be a town hall setting. We are going to have an opening up, which will be by myself. Myself will be doing the opening. We're going to have a PowerPoint that'll be continuously going, a video PowerPoint that will not stop. So this way, if someone happens to walk in late, because I overheard you saying about your own children, people have jobs, people commute, whatever it might be, just a constant going, and it will have, once it's complete, it'll have all the information that we want to share out. Might have some people speaking on the referendum, or definitely will. We just, who those people will be, we haven't decided yet. And, pictures of the three different schools, and then there'll be separate sites or little tiny groups, which I think was very welcomed. People liked that when they came to the town hall that we had here, they could walk over to the middle school and the principal was available, and they could walk over to Applegoth, and the principal was available in the high school as well. And the entire leadership team, inclusive of supervisors and all the principals and directors and everybody, will be invited to come. And board members, I'm not sure how that works with quorum, so I don't know, how it works when. But those are two meetings. In addition, we already said yes, and I will confirm the date. We will be speaking at the we will be speaking at the League of Women Voters. I put the W in front of the L. And that is on February
27th.
Thank you. February 27th, 1 p.m., I believe.
Yep.
And just give me a location.
That's the municipal building.
The municipal building. So as of right now, and all this information is on the website. League of Women Voters will be added to the website if it's not already added. So those are three places. In addition to, if you invite us, we will come. So I want to say approximately 13 or 14 plan retirement communities and HOAs. Even if it wasn't a plan retirement community, we reached out with a personalized letter from me via email, and hopefully they'll invite us. We're in the process right now of creating a pamphlet as well.
Is that where we'll have the QR code?
That's going to be on everything.
Okay.
Yes.
So you mentioned with the MTA, are they different than, so like the board can't support it or not support it, and the district can't support it or not support it or not spend money saying to vote yes, right? Do they have more autonomy than the district? Like they're allowed to actually have an opinion?
That I don't know, so I will get that answer for you. But what I do know is, according to the MTA president, they have a set standard of what they do to provide for the referendum. That's how she explained it to me. So she asked us to send her the question, which we did. I sent her the website, of course, which she has access to, because on the website we have all, just a wealth of information. The other thing also, we're going to be having banners as well. I thought it was very important that every school has a banner out front with the referendum. So As far as that, I know that they have like, a standard of what they spend and how it must be spent. So will they do a mailing, and we'll give them the mailing with the QR code? Can they write, I think they maybe can say, vote yes or no, whereas we just say vote. So I'm not really sure, but I do think they're held to a different standard. That is my understanding. So tonight was, I believe she was having a meeting. I'm not sure if it was this afternoon or this evening, but I will have contact with her tomorrow and see how it went. So we are moving along, rocking and rolling, and we're open to any suggestions. Be happy to write them down if anybody has any suggestions.
I think just to clarify, and this was a couple years back, so it could have changed, but generally teachers can say support our schools and things of that nature without saying vote yes.
Oh, okay, support our schools,
But
that's good.
if it's changed in the last 2 or 3 years, then don't go by that. But that's what I know when our district, when I was teaching, went through referendum, we were allowed to say, is, support our schools. So, which, is sort of saying yes without saying yes.
Right.
But I guess my other question was, I had two. The first was if we're allowed, if you guys are allowed to attend PTA meetings of that nature and discuss the referendum there. Like I know you had mentioned Millie and Applegarth. And then, ultimately anyone can go.
Of course.
It's not only
yeah,
those
right.
people, but then I also know there might be parents who may not be able to go that day that may attend one of those meetings. Same for Barclay Brook, Brookside. I wasn't sure if that's another opportunity.
Absolutely. I think anybody who'd like us to go anywhere, as long as it's feasible. Those are just two so far, that we're having, and, I think any venue would be appropriate to come to the presentation.
And then my other question was just the presentation, like the layout of it sounds great for the meetings. And then you had mentioned that people can come up to speak to people. Will there be an opportunity during the presentations for community members to ask questions so that if they want clarification, it's coming, from the horse's mouth, if you will, rather than getting it third hand, fourth hands from other individuals?
I think the way we want to do it is, of course, we'll never turn away a question, but it's not going to be a question answer format. That is not the intention, because, we would rather you see the presentation and then have questions, because what they might be doing is asking a question. If you would just wait the moment to go through the whole presentation, you would be able to see the answers as well as individuals. I mean, if someone's asking a question, I would going to assume that the majority of the main questions are going to be available on the FAQ once it's completely finished, the facts and question page. And then a lot of people have questions pertaining to the individual schools.
Right.
And that is why we absolutely want everybody to ask many, many questions, but then you'd ask at that individual location, because we have the visual there also. Well, I was wondering, I heard that you're going to be having another lunchroom at the middle school. Well, we are. Well, can you show me what that looks like? Well, if I'm up there speaking and you're going to say that to me, no, I really can't show what it looks like. But, perhaps we step over here to the right, and yes, I can show you what it looks like, because here's the diagram, and this is where it's going to be, and there's going to be like I don't want to use the word hallway, but there's going to be like a separation in the middle. So it'll be like two separate lunchrooms, but yet it'll be open, and then the cafeteria will be over here. So you're saying that you're not doing a new kitchen? No, we're not doing a new kitchen, like those kind of things. So I guess the answer is we always answer all questions, of course, but the presentation is not going to be set up with a microphone with a question and answer format.
Okay, yeah.
So I did, speaking to Mr. Oleski, he had a question and just about, would we be able to maintain a list of questions? And just kind of keep almost like a running document, more or less, on the website.
Oh,
just kind of
absolutely.
like in addition to right, with your
Yeah.
standard FAQ.
Absolutely, I think that's a great
But like
idea.
if, somebody asks another type of question, if we could just throw it up
Throw it
there,
in.
that way we just can kind of keep a running
Yes.
list of.
And I think that's how most of the FAQ pages usually wind up getting created, because they start out with questions that we think,
Mhm.
we all talk and we think, oh, that was, someone's going to ask that. And then all of a sudden you get these really good questions, and that's a good opportunity to provide an answer. Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments about referendum communication? Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the social media website. No, Ms. Ratner, you had, yes, some.
Yeah, I just, I know we had spoken about it on this committee, in the fall perhaps. I was just curious if there were any updates to the idea of making the district page more active. Like I have seen a couple of things, but, I guess like the consistent, features of, featuring a school on a certain day or things of that nature. I wasn't sure if, that had taken place. And then also I remember there was the discussion of possibly streamlining it, and also using the social media scheduling app, and I wasn't sure what the updates were from that.
I don't have an update with me right now regarding, for Mr. Perez, who is handling the, and we want to do Sprout Social. So I know that, to my knowledge, because I'm one of the people that, I don't tweet, but one of the people that do send it to, Mr. Perez or Mr. Feldman to send it out. So we do have, anytime there's an opportunity to share what is going on, it goes on all of them. Whether or not Sprout Social is being utilized yet,
It is.
it is. Okay, so that's where it's pushing it out. So it'd be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I'm missing one, no? That's it?
That's it.
But as far as like the change on the front, I mean, we could easily have that conversation about, like right now, they're still showing like the cutting of the ribbon, I looked.
Right.
But we could,
Yeah, so they
could ask like each school to have like a representation.
I just feel like the more good news we can put out about the schools in public in general, but social media, the better it is, share what the teachers are doing, that's great, what the students are doing, that's great. And, if you read like what it's called now, Falcon.
Challenge.
Thank you. You can get that information in that newsletter, and obviously people can sign up for that if they want to, but at the same time, if people don't read it thoroughly or aren't signed up, this is another way to share with them what is being done in the district.
I mean, it's certainly something we can funnel in. I think one of the other things we talked about was there are existing district accounts, like an athletics account, a high school account. There's a co-curriculars kind of clubs account here at the high school. And funneling those, which aren't our district accounts,
Right.
to him so he can push them out on, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of that information is out there.
It
It's
is.
just like a tier down from the district accounts, right? If you think of it in terms of like a tree of information. And the other thing we had talked about, and I know the tech department is working on it, and it has to do with the template that we use for our webpage. We had talked about putting some sort of social media like window in there. So as it goes out on social media, it kind of updates, you can see like a live
Almost like a
stream,
widget.
Twitter, Facebook, I've seen it on some other, but the issue we have with that right now is our template that we use. It's School Wires is our company, and it's embedded in that template. So I know they're gonna, and Mr. Perez has very strong web development skills. So if it can be done embedded within our website, that's something, it's another place, because we get a lot of hits on our webpage as well.
Right.
That's probably the most active piece of digital information that we have. We get tens of thousands of hits on that a day. And it's students that just go there for their daily information, but it's also, I think, become just a go-to place to start to find out information about our district.
I will say that, because I'm so involved in the district, I have looked at like the athletic director's accounts and some of the other high school, and they're great. As an elementary school parent, sometimes it's a little harder to find out because ultimately, also, elementary school kids aren't on social media, but generally, the parents are. And so when I read the newsletter and I see those things, I'm like, wow, check out what they're doing at Brookside. That looks amazing. But those things don't always make it to that social media aspect. So I'm not really sure if something can be done of that nature, but I feel like if there's something that can be done, it might be something worth looking into.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I would say, step one with that is do all the schools have an active social media account? They may or may not, right? So their venue to get information out may just be sending it to the district account to get it as well. So, yeah.
Great. The next item on the agenda is legislative items. So this is something new for the committee this year. So we've kind of taken a look, and I would thank Ms. Ratner for taking some time and diving into the legislature here and finding some items that we feel are important for discussion because they could potentially have an impact on our district. So the first item on the agenda under legislative items is A3384, which establishes a grant program for school districts to develop in-district and collaborative special education programs and services to reduce need to place classified students out of district. So
Well, I could actually speak on this one because we're
Yes.
utilizing one right now in the middle school. So we currently have a major grant that is being utilized to establish support services for a clinician to physically be in the building on a daily basis, and then work outside of the parameters of the school when necessary to work with children who may have been placed in an out-of-district placement. So it's exactly what this is saying, and we currently have it. And the grant is only good for this year, and it was amount of money was approximately like $190,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Does that sound right to you? $190,000, and we're trying to look for ways to be able to supplement that financial cost to keep it going for next year. It was one of the conversations that we had within the budget cycle that was brought to us by middle school. It is uncanny that it is exactly what you have written here, is exactly what is currently going on in the middle school at this time. So it's something that we're looking toward finding additional grant monies to be able to keep a program like this going, because if it happens to be meeting the needs of, let's say, 2 to 3 children, which I think are currently working with 3 children, out of district costs are exorbitant
Exactly.
and very, very costly. So, and it's what's right for children also, because least restrictive environment is always what's best for children. So
Right.
keeping them in their home school is really what we want them to be.
So procedurally wise, as legislation comes through and blah, 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 eventually maybe it gets approved, it could take months, years, it's not great or expire. As a district, we have eyes and hands on a means of communication to know something got finalized, that there's money or
absolutely.
anything available, that there's some action we should take to apply for. Like, does that get fed to us, or we have to mine for it?
So the first level, I'll just speak for what I do on
Sure.
my end of it. So we get, and I actually was gonna bring just one thing that I got today. We get updates from our professional organizations as things get turned over. So the bills on this list were from last session, from the 22-23 session. My guess is, since we haven't seen anything that they're in play for now, they're gonna have to be reintroduced starting this
So
session.
they weren't approved, they weren't made more for lack of a better term.
So what we started to get, and I got an email today from the NJASA, which is one of our professional organizations, of things that were proposed already this session. So that's kind of our first kind of lookout. And then the professional organizations will monitor and then advocate for certain things or against certain things, right? Depending on which angle they're coming at. As they kind of gain ground, we get information from the county office, which has a different kind of political lens that starts to give us heads up. One thing that we've have our ears out for is the snow day piece,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Virtual snow days.
Which has not gotten support I just had my meeting, so we always have this
That's why I
conversation.
kind of led this right to pick that up.
Yeah, so I'm always, I'll pass him things, he'll pass me things, we both get the same things, but it's good because it keeps it on our radar, we're always on the same page, him and I, being on the same page is important, because I just had my meeting last week, and I think I even put it in my information to the board, it is not being supported. What does that mean? So it hasn't been supported in the legislature, so it hasn't been approved to be moved forward. Does it mean it's a done deal? No. What it means is it has to be brought up, like you said, again.
So what it
And that's what
sounds
happens.
like where that bill is, so it was brought up last year, which is what we see in the agenda.
Right.
It sounds like, because they're talking about it right now, somebody was trying to bring it up again,
Correct.
and it's not getting support,
Correct.
right? For whatever reasons, and we're not getting
Mhm.
the details as to why it's not, but that's where this whole kind of communication piece at the county and stuff, so we can watch kind of the live, as they propose things like that, but they'll get the insight to say, because we've been asking, is it gonna happen, is it not? Its impacts on our calendar and stuff as we develop it, and
Yeah.
it does us no good at some point down the road
Mhm.
if they put qualifications into this
Mhm.
that our calendar doesn't fit, right?
Right.
So we've been really anxiously kind of waiting to see if it was gonna get any ground, and it sounds like, at least right now, it's not. Who knows to say 2 months from now, it might get ground again.
Exactly.
But,
And it's very political. Who's involved, who's not involved, where's it coming from, where's it going to?
Well, and I think that's a very interesting topic too, because you definitely have one end is like, no, let them be kids, let them have a snow day, right? And then there's the other one is like, well, who cares? We've been virtual for so long anyway. So it's kind of a back and forth thing. So yeah, that's
Yeah, I've heard that there's the idea, well, let the first one be a snow day, but then you can go remote, so that way they get the experience, but then,
if you're gonna be out for more than one day.
Then some of it's been saying it has to be more than 3.
3 days.
So
That's what we've been
the
hearing.
current proposal, well, I should say the proposal from
Yeah.
last year, it required a district to schedule 3 snow days and then use the 3 snow days or 3 day, whatever days. Because historically, when we've had a hurricane, right, we use our snow days and then we have emergency days. So I think from our perspective, a typical snow day is kind of a little different. But we would like, and maybe they're gonna build it in, or we, at this point, they give us permission, but if we got in a jam where we had to do a 5-day closure or something like that, we'd want the flexibility to be able to say, can we pivot, take it, take 1 or 2 snow days and then transition? And if we can have the latitude to do something like that without this legislation, I think that would, you never
Yeah.
know when a flood's gonna happen or this or that,
Right.
or a tree falls on a roof or something like that. So instead of having to eat those days and try and make them up on, for one school on vacations and stuff like that, if we can have that flexibility, and that's really what that comes down to.
And we really don't, because there was a situation in a neighboring district recently that had to close. And it wasn't until the 4th day that they reached out, and it was, I believe, the county superintendent then on behalf of the district reaches out and then got permission to go virtual. It was after don't quote me, it was either after the 3rd or the 4th day. So they did have to eat, for lack of a better term, whatever days they didn't have,
Yeah.
add them on or change or so forth. So it's not something that we're looking toward to be a reality at this juncture.
Can I bring up, it's an additional piece, so, because the ones that are on here are ones from
Right.
the 22-23 legislative
Right,
session.
so they're all,
So
they're
again,
all that they.
I'm
Yeah.
curious to see if they're gonna recycle again, right?
Right, right.
But one that I got today that just, we can all write down the number and start watching it is, Assembly number 5051. It requires schools to be used as polling places only if other public, private, or commercial locations are not available. So that's something for us to monitor, because we have a few schools that
Right.
are polling places. And it does impact our schedule, especially in a presidential election in November, in a November election. So that's something that I believe it was introduced on January 12th. We just got the notification today, but it's just something to keep an eye on. And I'm sure this is a busy time for them to introduce things, so we'll keep an eye on them. There's other educational related ones. They passed something about digital literacy in terms of, embedded in curriculum. So they basically passed something that they want the state Board of Education to then put something in place to have some digital literacy standards put in. So again, we're a ways off from having that happen, but it's on our radar to embed and weave in those kind of things.
And even there, it'll go from legislation, then to the Department of Education, and then down to the LEAs, or?
And it depends on how they propose it. Usually when it has to do with a curricular item or something, they're asking the DOE to kind of take charge of it. The legislature's not going to write the document, right? So they're going to tell somebody they need to do it, or they're going to tell somebody to put a committee together with certain people on the committee and stuff like that. So those are the things. So there are a few other ones, but this is probably the most relevant one for us right now.
Is this year now considered the 23-24 session? That's curious.
I believe it is, because introduced January 12th, 2023,
And they go back to session in January.
and they're in session now, so.
Okay, yeah, so for those who don't know, like, there's a website, it's NJ, I'm looking at now, njleg.state.nja.us, and you can search all bills. So like, for me, when I was looking, I just typed in education and then tried to find
Sure.
relevant ones. But right now, the last legislative session you're able to select is 22-23.
Yeah. so
I
you
figured
say
since
that
we
now.
like just started 23, that's the most updated, but I
Yeah.
guess not.
Well, I think everybody that got elected is now.
New, so it's a
Right.
new
So I think
legislative
that's why-
session.
That's the turnover for the
Legislative
sessions.
session.
But again, sometimes what they do is they just roll these over
Right.
and reintroduce. If there has to be a level, I believe, a level of support to even move this on. So,
That 5051 though is interesting though too, because I also feel like that ties heavily in with security.
Yep,
Um,
because you
so-
cannot have police officers at a certain certain amount of
Yeah.
people.
that's
We're
probably,
fortunate that we have security guards, so
Yeah.
we're in a good shape.
that's probably the
Logical.
reason for this, yeah.
So one question I have, and this would, be a discussion by the full board before we could go further. If there's a piece of legislation that we feel strongly for or against, are we able to write a resolution as a board to send to our legislators then?
Absolutely. Yeah, you just need board support for it, but, yeah.
That way, if there's something that we feel passionate
Sure.
about that we're hearing, then we can take that next step for the regular meetings and take care.
Anything else that
No.
for discussion? I think that's the end of our agenda.
Well, but there are other,
Oh, do you want to talk about the ones from
I mean,
from the previous?
so a lot of them
Session?
end up just being like you said, like
Mhm.
they're just reintroduced. And, ultimately, we can ask our legislator to reintroduce them if there's something we feel, very
Mhm.
strongly about. I actually, so this, I think it's A4059. It was introduced in May of 2022. So, it's relatively recent. And basically what it does is it provides, funds for property tax relief to various towns, with the stipulation that if you are accepted, if you accept this grant, then you have to reduce your overall spending over 5 years, by engaging in good faith effort to, either enter into shared services or engaging in other cost measures. And then also, that you have to satisfy, other obligations in regards to affordable housing as a town and things like that. So I feel that's something worthwhile if, we can't necessarily support this exact legislative item because it's, in the past now to ask to have it reintroduced because, we're well aware that that is a big problem affecting our town taxes or, continue to go up and we have to pay a lot. And, while we also are hoping that this school funding task force eventually gets created, we don't know when or how it will affect us. So I feel like
That's
anything
over a
we
year.
can do to try and get some money from the state is worth it because we get, pennies on the dollar. And then, the other one, was full day kindergarten, which, realizing we don't have the space to support that type of program. So suggesting that, ideally we would love to see it, but if this is something that's passed, we would need the financial support as a district in order to implement it. Because I don't think the argument has ever been like whether or not there's the educational value, but how can we do that when we can't fit the people we already have? So, I feel like it's sort of both sides of the coin, right? So if you're going to pass this, which would be great, do not mandate a program and then not fund the program.
One of the things interesting on that full day kindergarten one, it talked about synchronizing that date to October 1st. As opposed to leaving it to the individual district level, which we're at November.
October 30th.
So I was curious if that's something that shows up in any other suggestions or, that should the district be working toward changing it to October 1st for any other reason other than this full day kindergarten anticipation, only because that seems like something that where we'd want to be aligned on, and I don't know how hard it is to get there, and we don't ever mention or talk about it. I don't know.
What is our current, is it
October
November?
31st.
October 31st.
I would say that is probably in an educational world, a pretty active debate. If you were to talk to any educational professional, I think they have strong opinions. I mean, there's districts that
State also.
push it into almost December sometimes.
New York,
November,
New York,
things like that.
New York is December.
So I think from a
Oh, is it?
logistical standpoint, from a global view, having a universal date would allow easy transfer, because we do have a lot of, movement within our communities,
It was just funny that they were putting it in there, and I hadn't seen it
Right.
in other legislation suggestions. I'm always surprised that this is left to the LEAs and not, only because of people moving around, so.
Well, and we do have, every once in a
If
while,
it's challenging.
we get phone calls and have the conversation. So-and-so came to us from another district, they're this age, but they were in this grade, and like, we have these conversations.
They're in kindergarten in one school district. They moved 5 miles over, or
First
10
grade.
miles over, and they're in first grade.
Yep,
I
And
recall
that's a-
growing up, Marlboro and Alphen had different cutoff dates, and the towns, like, it goes Marlboro and Alphen, so like, they're so closely linked. But, if you're born, I'm born November 8th, right? So for me, like, if we moved to Alphen, I would have had to like repeat a grade or something like that, because if I missed the cutoff, right? So it definitely is, a statewide, like you said, like, it should be something that's.
well, New York, I mean, all of Staten Island moves here, because we're so closely located for
Right.
them. And I can't speak for now, but in the past, it was my understanding that it was December 31st. So you had to be,
Universal by the state or?
no,
The
well,
state.
New York has one school system for all 5 boroughs.
Right.
New York City,
So it's all-
New York City.
Right, and
New
then
York
like
City,
Long
yeah.
Island and then upstate, they're like us,
They're
right?
different,
So each town
Right.
has
But the
its own
5
charter.
boroughs all follow the same rules, they have one school district. So that's easy there, but then they come to us. I mean, we're fortunate that we really are very open-minded and look at the whole child. We look at the educational background, we look at, depending on what grade, we look at testing. We don't just automatically assume, like, we wouldn't have made you repeat the grade if you went
Right.
from Alvin to Marlboro. Yeah, because we
Oh,
want,
we
Thank
got
you.
flexibility to.
yes.
Place.
So our default placement is age. And then once they're in our system, and this applies mostly to international students, because sometimes they start, their grade one is maybe a year earlier, or a grade later. But we place by age, and then we have built-in assessments that we can.
And we have
flex
done
Up and down if we had
We
to.
have done it already. You and I handled one situation between fifth grade and sixth grade. You remember that?
Yep.
So,
Interesting.
a couple of years ago it was.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, I witnessed it also, and I think what the public also needs to understand too is it's not just something as simple as changing the date, like, oh, why don't you just move it to October 1st? Because, parents also are thinking like, okay, my child's gonna start kindergarten next year, and their birthday is October 15th, and it's like, oh, no, but we're changing the date to October 1st. Now, those parents
Every
have to
year.
now have to wait a whole nother year, and it's a whole nother year of daycare, and it definitely has a bigger, impact on the community than just a date change. So, there's a lot of things that go into that, and kind of, because I know I've talked about it, where I am, and we just kind of said, like, if that was ever to happen, it has to kind of be, let it be known that this is going to happen, and it has to like be kind of eased into a little bit,
Grandfathered
so that
Oh, absolutely.
people,
In
you know,
advance and
don't-
notification.
right, aren't blindsided by that. So,
Are there any of these that we want to consider potentially bringing up for a resolution? Do we want to have a second discussion at the following month's meeting before we decide to go forward with that?
does anybody have any opinions on any of these? I mean, the property tax relief might be a nice,
Right, which
one
also
to
ties into
look
the
at.
school district shared service task force,
Mhm.
because that's also looking at shared services amongst towns, which is one of the things you're supposed to do for this tax relief trust fund.
Mhm.
So we could always write in support of those two.
That's
bills.
another good one to stick close with NJSBA on.
Right.
Too, so they're always
Mm.
identifying the
Mhm.
ones that seem like they're hot potatoes and are looking for support or action on, where sometimes they do send a
Mhm.
buzz out saying, get your board to do a resolution to support this. I don't know about ones that aren't. Yeah, so like there, your rally is to
Right.
just reintroduce it. And I don't know how long these things take to,
Mhm.
some, I think, go fast.
Faster.
If there's passion after it,
Exactly.
and other things. It's lingering.
I mean, I had looked at the full day kindergarten bill. I think it's been reintroduced 3 or 4 times with different numbers, right? And then you have the assembly number and the Senate number. So, but then there's not movement. And, one thing I was told when I asked about it, at a legislative event was that because we're only one of like 10 districts now out of like 600 and something districts in the state that don't have full day kindergarten, people aren't asking for that bill. There's actually more support for universal preschool than for full day kindergarten, because people aren't really affected in other towns by this any longer. But my thing is, well, how can we have universal preschool and we can't even fit kindergarteners into our schools yet? So, that's why I said if the stipulation, they're going to pass this, you need to fund the mandate, because we can't just start putting kids in random places. We don't have space right now to fit what we do have. So, yeah, but I agree, like, I'm seeing the same ones like 4 or 5 years in a row, and then it's, they had said, I think that thing there, they get like 400, 500 bills that are presented, and really they take action on a very small sampling of those that are presented.
So I think from between now and next month, we'll see if anything else comes through, and I have them marked, and we can discuss next month just to see, if there's anything else that we want to try to push for, but let's see where we're at as we get closer to the next meeting.
There's also a program, I forget, maybe it's called Ballot OP. There's something where you can put specific legislative bill numbers, and then they'll email you if there's an update on it. So if you want to, keep track of what's happening with those bills, it's easier to do it than to constantly go back and check the website for those updates.
Mhm.
So.
Anything else? All right, that concludes our meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.